title of her speech or the whole presentation is Think Local, Act Global. Wanjiru Mureithi will have 20 minutes for the exercise and 2 to 3 minutes for a closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen, Think Local, Act Global, Wanjiru Mureithi.
Decisions, decisions, decisions. Leaders need to make decisions every day. These decisions have different impact on individuals and organizations, and all these have to be treated very, very delicately. Think local, act global. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very important day as I am here to present to you a group that has been appointed by the Ministry of Education. We are here to reach a consensus on a very important decision. We need to think locally and act globally about the education system. But why should we use consensus and not other decision-making techniques? Consensus is very valuable where multiple stakeholders have to work together to reach a solution that satisfies all the parties. It is not compromise because compromise requires parties to make concessions to reach the agreement. This is not what we're looking for today. Neither are we looking for majority decision making because majority decision making technique accepts the decision agreed by at least half of the members. You will all know that in 2020, we have had a very, very difficult time. In March of this year, among other government initiatives that were put in place to curb the spread of the COVID pandemic was the closure of all schools and learning institutions. Over the last 6 months, my department, that is the Ministry of Education, has been involved in various meetings with different stakeholders to decide what should be done about the school's closure. So today, the panel that is here today, including yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, has to make a decision about whether schools should reopen in October 2020. As the national government, represented here by both the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, the key objective for us is to ensure that there is a safe and secure learning environment for all learners and people working within the education system, as well as the rest of the country. We know that there are various stakeholders who play various important parts of this ecosystem. These stakeholders have been involved in their own very specific meetings over the course of the 6 months. Today, we have 4 groups represented here that will then give us their stand as to whether schools should open in October. I have the 4 stakeholders represented by number 1, school administration. This includes all the owners of the schools, both private and government owned, and all the administration related to them. Their representative will be Mr. Robert Kimani. The second stakeholders will be the school suppliers. These are the organizations that provide services to the various schools. So think about transport companies, catering companies, booksellers, uniform sellers, and the like. These suppliers will be represented by Ms. Peggy Obam. We also have the teachers and support staff in all the various schools that will be represented in this meeting by Murugi Cairo. And last but not least, a critical part of our ecosystem is the parents and of course the students who make up all these schools. This shall be represented by Evelyn Mohoro. It is very important for us to lay that we do understand there have been very alternative measures set about by different schools that have involved online learning and some form of resource mobilization and provision of information to the learners even during the closure. We do admit as government, indeed, there has been inequality of how much this support has been provided across all the schools in the country. The other thing we are very cognizant of is that indeed this pandemic may influence the need for infrastructure and supplies that may not have been planned for within the school budgets. Therefore, we do understand that indeed there may be some upgrade required for this. But very key to us is really the interruption of learning for over 6 months, which has, of course, also affected the interruption of the learning calendar. So for this process, I want to ensure that we have respect for all the different stakeholders. We as government have a team here today with us that is going to be listening keenly to the position of all the stakeholders and ensure that each and every group represented, their needs and their worries are dealt with and documented. Each of you is going to have an equal platform to present the needs and to contribute to this discussion of whether indeed we are ready to open schools in October 2020. I will call upon each of the stakeholders and give them initially a period of not more than 2 minutes to give us their feedback from their various committees and to help us then develop this process and come to some consensus about whether we should open the schools or not. I know most of you know the term think global, act local. And I've been very, very careful to actually frame it the other way because we need to think local. What is our local context? What are the needs on the ground? And how can we then understand those and develop a strategy for the global implementation where global is the nation and perhaps this can be studied by other countries as well. At the end of this discussion, we hope that indeed we will come to a consensus and I will make a closing statement at the end of our discussion. So to begin our presentation today, I want to call upon the representative of the school administration, Mr. Robert Kimani, to make his presentation to the panel. Over to you, Mr. Robert Kimani.
Thank you very much, Wanjiru, for this opportunity to present our findings and our opinion on what we think should happen. Our position is informed by realities that this decision is difficult. We are stuck between two hard rocks. And we stand to say that we feel that it would be prudent for us to open the schools this October. There are two main reasons why we approach and made this decision. One is the loss of livelihood. Our members have not only lost livelihoods, but their staff have also indeed lost livelihoods. Let me give you an example of one such person. Katana is a science teacher in one of our primary schools. The primary school is actually a private primary school. His home county is Taita Taveta. He is the eldest son in a family of 5. He is the breadwinner of not only his nuclear family of 3 children, but of his extended family. Katana's story is being echoed around the country. We need to open up the economy and open up the schools because they are providing a livelihood for Katanas around our country who are supporting many other people in this country of ours. Another important thing and another important finding we came across is an incipient crisis brought about by teenage pregnancy. There's a report that was published recently that noted that there are 152,000 girls got pregnant during this lockdown period. That incipient crisis will continue unless we put a stop to children staying at home where they are unsupervised, they unsupervised and would indulge in otherwise unwanted activity that is causing us to get into another state of crisis. There are 2 solutions we have besides following the COVID protocols. One, for boarding schools, it would be easy for us to implement the COVID protocols of social distancing. Once we have all the students tested at the point of entry, we will be very strict with our suppliers and our teachers who are coming into the school to ensure that they do not bring in this disease. For day school, we have some radical yet simple suggestions. One is shift attendance. This has been used previously in the 1980s when we did not have enough space in our schools. We can implement as a practice where students go for lessons at different times of day. We also would suggest in those cases a radical shift to avoid children mixing by banning physical education. They will get physical education as they walk to and from school. Thus, we conclude that it is prudent for us to ensure that we open the economy for the sake of the livelihoods of our members, for the livelihood of their staff, and for our teenagers who are experiencing an unprecedented challenge from the boy child at home. Back to you, our moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert Kimani, representing the school administration. Very pertinent points that you have raised, and I will summarize them in my closing statements. Thank you for that. Next, we have Mureithi Cairo, who is representing the Teachers and Support Staff Association. Mureithi, kindly give us your remarks from your committee. Over to you, Mureithi.
Wanjiru, thank you so much for extending this invite on behalf of all teachers around the country. I'm delighted to represent the teachers and support staff in this very important discussion this evening. As you all know, teachers around the country and also around the world rarely ever get remunerated for the important, they don't get well remunerated for the important work that they're doing, which is creating the future leaders and the future workforce of the country. And during this COVID time, it's been even harder for us because a lot of people have been laid off because some of the schools have closed and there are no students. And so we've had to create our own supplementary incomes. And because of this, most teachers and support staff have had to move up country, back to their homes up country to reduce their costs of living in the cities, in the big cities, and so that they could just create other income, other revenue streams for themselves. For example, we have one of our members who even converted one of the classrooms in his rural school into a temporary chicken coop and has already signed a contract with Kenchik to deliver 10,000 chickens by December 2020. So if the students come back to school for just 1 month, because up until now, the government is really not, it's not really clear whether school is going to continue without closing for the December holidays, but we have, we feel that it's probably going to close for the December holidays. So it doesn't really make sense to just spend all that money to come back to school because there's a lot of resources that have to be considered in order for the teachers to go back, because they have to travel, they have to close their other businesses and the likes, just for 1 month or 6 weeks maximum. It's really quite an inconvenience for the teachers and also for the students, because it destabilizes them a lot. And the parents, let's not forget the parents as well. And so what the teachers feel, they strongly feel that reopening the schools in October is really not sustainable. We would rather wait just 1 or 2 more months and then just start the school year in 2021, in January 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Murugi Cairo, for your contribution representing the teachers and support staff and for sharing those personal stories as well. Next, we're going to the parents and the students representative, Miss Evelyn Mohoro. Please give us your standing on this decision of whether schools should be opened in October. Over to you, Evelyn Mohoro.
Thank you for the introduction. And as I represent the parents, I'll get right into it. With due regard for lost incomes and lost livelihoods and the general recession and suffering that everyone is going through, we need to keep in mind that we are talking about a matter of life and death, and it is a question of safety. So that is my first point in terms of children's safety and general preparedness of schools. As we've had, some people have converted classrooms and schools into other uses, and suddenly in 3 days, they had to then prepare and get ready to welcome children back into school without due regard for anything. Nobody is really checking to see what's infrastructure or structures have been put in place in schools for people to then be able to take children to school. Let us also remember that our little ones can barely come back home with their items of clothing or uniform. So imagine a mask. My biggest concern is even that they would pick any mask they come across, or even they have fun exchanging masks because one likes the color that the other one has. The issue of social distancing in public schools, you have classrooms that have upwards of 40 students in class. I know that the school administration has explained that you can do shift classes, but how sustainable is this, and how long would you be able to do this and still cover the curriculum for the term? Then, given the incipient recession, again, that's affecting everyone, from the parents' viewpoint, it's also difficult to raise school fees, purchase of uniforms, because from the beginning of the year, most of the kids have really shot up. They've grown, so they can no longer fit into their old uniforms. That would mean a total replacement of all the items of uniform. Perhaps maybe just socks and ties would be the only things that they wouldn't have to change. And even ties, once the shoulders and the necks become a bit thicker, then it's difficult. And books as well. This late in the day, it's asking a lot of parents. Then there is the current incipient resurge of COVID-19 numbers or infections. The ministry is warning, hospitals are warning us that the infection is back, and that could lead to a second wave, and we are sending our children right into the eye of the storm. And then lastly, in this country, things generally begin to shut down in preparation for the holiday season in this third quarter. So psychologically, even there'll be very little productivity, and it feels like just the need to tick a box, like let's go back to school. Sorry, there's one more point. Private schools have been switched on all through. Children, again, without disregard for those in public schools, there are many children who have been going through assignments, exams, and that sort of thing, and they've really lived a life of school their whole year and covered their terms and even graduated and moved to the following year. And now those very kids have to stay in school until Christmas Eve, which can also lead to fatigue and general dislike for school and many other stress-related issues. On those few points, I rest my case on behalf of parents.
Thank you very much, Evelyn Mohoro. Last but not least, I want to give the opportunity to the school suppliers representative. I do notice we may be out of time for this, so I will encourage you maybe just to give the highlights, and I will wrap up, but then we'll provide you with ample time after the discussion. Peggy Obam, please present the position of the school suppliers, if you can, in a minute or so.
Thank you very much, Wanjiru. As a school supplier, I am very happy with the issue of schools reopening. First, it is because it will open many ways for us who have, for us to get income, since we've been stranded for over 7 months now since COVID. So this will also present an opportunity for many other suppliers who will at least go on with their businesses. And also the schools are going to benefit from it. We understand your concern as your concerns as teachers, parents, and even the school administration about safety in terms with the COVID period. But what we promise you, and also we understand that there are some items that you haven't budgeted for. So as suppliers, after we've had our meeting, we agree that we are going to supply. We are going to supply our supplies on discounted price. And then for any school that is currently struggling in terms of getting mask and even uniform, we aim to collaborate with the school administration to run like a drive for books and even uniform, so that this is actually met, and also to cushion our parents when it comes to cushion our parents during these tough economic times. Overall, we have to accept that Corona is not a passing wind. It is here to stay. We have to embrace it and adapt to the new normal, because the longer we wait, the more things are going to be still and even tougher. So I would like to encourage all of us to open. Let the school open, let life go on as normal. We are going to ensure that we provide to keep up with the safety measures, and even provide enough masks, and even give our parents and teachers good prices, and so that it can cushion them also during this economic time. Thank you, and over to you, Wanjiru.
Thank you very much. We have now heard from all four stakeholder groups, and I just want to do a quick summary, and we'll take a break and reconvene. Clearly, consensus is not to be achieved today, because we have 2 of the stakeholders saying yes and 2 of the stakeholders saying no. So we have talked about availability of resources, both financial and material. We've talked about safety and security. There's loss of livelihoods, and there's different incentives that have been given in terms of things that can be put in motion. This is not about making the right choice. It is about making the choice right. And I thank you all for your contribution with the local initiatives that we can put in place to actually reopen schools. It is not an easy decision, and I urge you to bear with us as we come back and present to you all the solutions provided, but we are far from a consensus, but at least we have heard from every side, and we can start collating the information and work towards a solution. Thank you so much. And I want to encourage us to continue thinking about the local solutions to this global problem. Indeed, we can think local and act global, and we can also come up with a solution for our schools so that learning can continue and we can get back on the school calendar. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day.